Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there's hatred, let us sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's discord, union. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to introduce the guest speakers. We've got our guests here today. First off, our elected officials. We have Linda Fisher, who's from the Germantown Municipal School Board. Betsy Landers from Germantown School Board. Peggy Larkin, SEC District 31. Mary Ann Gibson, Germantown Alderman. Amber Mills, Shelby County Commissioner, District 1. And we have Ed Jackson here representing Congressman Kustoff's office. We also have Tennessee Federated President Barbara Troutman here today. And we have Christina Gardner, who is the Executive Director of the Shelby County Republican Party. And we have John Gillespie here for State House. He's running for, these are candidates, running for State House District 97. Brian Curry, Germantown School Board, Position 3. Brian Mulicky, Germantown Alderman 4. Scott Williams, Germantown School Board, Position 3. And Sherry Hicks, Germantown Alderman, Position 3. Beth, do we have any membership report?
Okay, so just real quick, we have 167 regular members. The October luncheon will be the last of the 2020 renewal for the season, and then you'll get rolled over to next year. So let's make sure we get in as many more people as we can. That's it. Thank you.
Two more things. On every table, except for that one because I have it in my hand right now, but there's a Lincoln Day sign-up sheet, and we don't have the date is firm, but all the details are not yet. So if you are interested in going, please sign up, and then that way I can contact you about what we're doing as a club. And also one other thing, Lina Medlock has a few of these Trump pens and all, and they're $10 a piece, I believe. So, and now I'd like to ask Kate Kelsey to come forward, please.
Good morning. I think we females have to shed the mask every once in a while because it does a job on your lipstick and your hair and everything else. You guys are lucky. I even have something else that it bothers. But I'm just so glad and want to welcome all of you here this morning. It's a great group, and we're trying to be very safe about distancing. The National Federation of Republican Women designates September every year as Literacy Month. And before we start our program, and we have a wonderful one, we've got a great featured speaker, I would like to just recognize all of you that are present today that have ever been involved in the field of education. So if you were a teacher or an administrator or a superintendent, or if you even, and I know some in here are even volunteers to tutor children in the inner city. If anybody has been involved in the field of education, we'd like to recognize you, and would you stand, please? thank you so much for your service, and, because I certainly feel like that the field of education is probably one of the most important, professions that you could choose to be involved in. This morning, we are very excited and we feel very privileged to have as our featured speaker, Dr. Penny Schwinn. She was sworn in as the Tennessee Commissioner of Education on February the 1st, 2019. And I'm sure that 1 year later, you had no idea what you were going to be up against. She is committed to building on Tennessee's momentum over the last decade, and she plans to continue to accelerate growth through excellence in achievement, empowerment of students and teachers, and engagement of all stakeholders in the field of education. She comes from a family of educators, which a lot of us do as well, and so we know we were not rich people, but you're appreciated. And she's committed to increasing access to an excellent education for all children. Commissioner Schwinn began her work as a high school history and economics teacher in Baltimore. Her early career also includes experience as a new teacher coach in Los Angeles and a time in the private sector. And prior to joining the Tennessee Department of Education, Commissioner Schwinn served as the Chief Deputy Commissioner of Academics at the Texas Education Agency. She has also previously served as an Assistant Secretary of Education in Delaware and Assistant Superintendent of Performance Management for the Sacramento City United School District. She is also founder and former superintendent of Capital Collegiate Academy. At that time, it was one of the county's highest performing charter schools, serving low-income students in her neighborhood, that the region of Sacramento where you grew up. And Commissioner Schwinn earned her Bachelor of Arts from the University of California, Berkeley, her Master's of Arts in Teaching from Johns Hopkins University, and her PhD in Education Policy from Claremont Graduate University in California. She is the proud parent of 2 daughters in Tennessee public schools and a son not yet school age. And I must admit, that's only a fraction of her accomplishments. I kept looking at her picture and I looked at all these accomplishments, and then you have 3 children, and I think you're a super lady. So we're so excited to have you here this morning, and at the end, we'll have a short question and answer period.
Yeah, I do have to say to start that one of the greatest things was updating my bio for my son. So he is 9 months, but he is a Memphian. So we adopted him back in November, and so just very, very glad. I got to say kind of the best part of Tennessee is living in my house. So he's learning to walk, so we are not sleeping. So happy to be here this morning and afternoon and talking about what I think is probably my favorite subject in education, and that is literacy. We are really kind of in the throes of it in our own home. I've got a 3rd grader and a new kindergartner. And so what we do, what we talk about, our family vacations, our extracurricular time is usually with books in hand. And it is something that we know is incredibly important to our own family. And when I think about the 975,000 children who are in our public schools here in the state of Tennessee, I know how important it is for the families that we serve there. So wanted to be able to start and talk a little bit about what does literacy look like here in the state? What are we facing? And frankly, we are starting a new school year in a pandemic. And we've got little kids who are at home and in school buildings, and sometimes a little bit of both, and they are trying to learn to read. And so when we think about education, when we think about how we learn to read, when we think about our own school experiences, none of us really thought about what it might feel like to learn how to read on a computer. What does it mean when you're trying to Zoom as a 5-year-old and somehow figure out phonics? What does it mean as a teacher when you are so used to being within 5.5 feet of your children, when you are used to having groups together and you're saying letter sounds, letter names, you're drawing letters in shaving cream, you're building blocks of letters and alphabets and sounding out CBC words. All of that is part of the beauty and richness of how we teach our children, and it looks different this year. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk through what our data looks like and why I think this is one of the most urgent issues we have in public education right now. Because we know we have a literacy crisis in the state of Tennessee, and we know that children have been out of school for 6 months, and we know that many of them are still out of school. And this is serious, and I'm very optimistic, even with all of that. So when we think about our data, and we think about where we are, as a state in Tennessee over the last 3 years, and this is 2017 through 2019, 34.7% of third graders were on track for reading. When we get to 2018, 36.8%, 2019, 36.9% of third graders are proficient in reading. 1/3 of our third graders. When we think about Shelby County schools, we're looking at 21.4% in 2017, 22.8% in 2019. 22.8%. When we think about the schools in Germantown, when we think about the schools just outside, completely different picture. And so grateful and so proud of the incredible work that is happening to accelerate achievement. And I want to applaud those folks who have been pushing and pushing and pushing. And we have one of our superintendents here today. I do want to take a moment and thank Jason. He's been phenomenal in literacy work. Can we just give him a round of applause? This is the kind of leadership when we think about needing to change the trajectory of our students in this state when it comes to early reading. We have to start with phonics. We have to start with early literacy, and we know that it makes an incredible difference in the lives of our children. Now when we think about NAEP, we have these national standards, or national assessments that will allow us to compare our state to other states. When we look at Tennessee, 35% overall are proficient on the NAEP assessment, and that's in 4th grade. Shelby County, 19%. When we look at our large urban areas, 27%. And when we look at the nation, it's about 34%. So as a state, we're performing at about the national average. And that's incredible work because that is not where we were 10 years ago. A lot of hard work went into getting to that space. And we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. And so when I think about what that means and looking at the numbers and the breakdown of the data, specifically within this part of the state, we also know that we have 91.4% of the students in Shelby County schools are Black, Hispanic, or Native American. We know statewide that's 35.2%. We have more students who are economically disadvantaged in Shelby County schools than in other parts of the state. And we know we have more English learners. So those are a number of things that we have to address if we're going to move this work forward. But why does it matter, right? Why does it matter? And I would say, not just as a former teacher, as a former principal of elementary school, and certainly as a parent of 3 kids who are running around that I'm trying to chase down at all hours of the day, I would say that there is nothing more important in their academic careers than making sure that they can read proficiently by 3rd grade. There's nothing more important. As their teacher, as a principal, and as their mother. That is the thing that we know puts them on a completely different path to success. And I can say that not only as their parent, but because when I was a principal of an elementary school, my little school, it was 98% economically disadvantaged. Not one child on the first day of kindergarten knew their letters, their letter names, or could identify their name in print. None. Most of my kids held their books upside down. So we were starting from scratch. And when I think about the school around the corner, where 6% of their 6th graders went on to be proficient into middle school. When I think about those same students who had less than a 10% graduation rate. When I think about those same students who, without a completely different pathway, over half of them would end up incarcerated. And then I look at students who are proficient in 3rd grade. Same economics, same communities, completely different education opportunities. Those children go on to successful careers, they go on to college, they go on to be able to support themselves and their families and be strong, good citizens of their communities. And that's why literacy, even when they're 8 years old, matters so much. It matters so much. So we think about the case for literacy. It is about making sure our students have access to the highest quality academics possible. It is making sure we give every kid a shot so that they can take advantage of their own opportunities and lead their own futures responsibly and in an effort to support themselves and their families. And we know that it leads to lifelong success. And it's really hard. If any of you have tried to teach a child how to read, especially when you've got 20 or 25 of them in a classroom, imagine a teacher with 20 kindergartners, 5 years old. Many of you, as parents, know that maybe bedtime with one child squirming around, asking for water, doing anything but wanting to put their head on the pillow. So now you got 20 of them sitting on a carpet, and you're having to figure out how to make sure each one of them has exactly what he or she needs to be able to move forward for that day. It is really, really hard to do. I will not say I was the best literacy teacher either. I did my best, but when I look at phenomenal literacy instruction, when I look at phonics first literacy instruction, what I see is an orchestra. It is someone who is standing in the front of the room or sitting on a carpet or sitting at a kidney table and able to masterfully think about, what does this section need? What does this section need? I'm coming back to you, sweetie. Like, that is the kind of work that makes our schools go. And it looks different this year. So what are we doing about it? Those are pretty sobering numbers. And I think, one, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. And two, there is still a long way to go. So in this time, especially now where we know that about 25% of our students statewide will be learning from home, likely for the majority of the year, 75% of our students will likely be in classrooms for some part of the week, but often will need to go back and forth in different settings. How are we going to continue to accelerate the literacy conversation and move this forward? And I believe that we can, and I believe that Tennessee will lead in this area. So the first thing is how we're doing it at home. Parents are their children's first teacher, and parents must be their children's first teacher. That has to be what it is. I'm with my kids the majority of their hours on weekends and the mornings at night. I am their first teacher, and I have a responsibility to them. So we want to make sure that our families have what they need to lead in their own child's education. We invested in a program, Ready Rosie. It was a partnership with the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation, 15-minute lessons that parents can log onto their phones, and it allows them to do just 15 minutes a day of early literacy work. And we have found that if you can just do 15 critical minutes, my mom would say you can do the same thing with exercise, sweetie. I was like, yes, thank you. But it's the same thing. You sit down with your child, they're super quick, easy things, and it makes a world of difference. We've invested with PBS. So we have a strong partnership with PBS where we are putting lessons on television, because we know that not all families have access to the internet. So if you don't have a computer at home, if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have internet, which many of our families in Shelby County schools do not have, then we said, you know what, you can turn on your television and we'll do early literacy through the television. We are working on making sure that families can get decodables at home. So if they don't have at-home libraries, they are able to still have the materials and books that they need to do that early literacy work in their own homes. And we also rolled out a recent website, and that allows for families, parents to talk to other parents and share strategies about what you can do to better educate and support your children. Now, I will say that throughout this morning, I am on a mommy text chain with my kids, the other moms in my daughter's classroom in Nashville and Davidson County. We are fully remote, and we are working very hard to get my little Ellie back in a seat in a classroom. We think that is the best environment for her, so we will figure out a way to do that. But what we're saying and what the parents in Green Hills are saying is, this is really hard. And one mom said, you know, I want to admit, I'm literally standing in my kitchen, I've locked myself in my pantry, and I'm banging my head on the door because I don't know how to do this. I'm not a trained teacher. My daughter does not want to sit in front of a computer all day, and I don't know how to help her. And when we think about parents across the state who just want to do right by their kids and just don't know how, we have a responsibility to help them help their children. And that's what we hope these at-home resources will do. And we also have to do stuff at the state. We have to make sure that we're giving our districts and our schools what they need to be successful. I do strongly believe in local control. I believe our superintendents and our school boards know what's best for their local communities, and they need to be able to make decisions with families and communities in mind. And that is not going to look the same across the entire state. I spend at least one day a week in schools, sitting with students, talking with families, talking with superintendents and principals. We talk 3 times a week on our superintendent calls. And it is the same root problem, but it looks different when you are in Johnson City versus when you're in Lake County versus when you're in Shelby County. So we do want to make sure people can make those local decisions. But we are investing. We rolled out a website, Best for All Central, And what that does in the ELA, or English Language Arts space, is it's a series of videos and lesson plans that if you need to do instruction remotely, if you are a teacher at home needing to give instruction, if you are a parent who wants to accelerate your child's achievement, if you need to provide remediation for a student, because we know most of our students are coming at least half a year behind because they've missed 6 months of instruction, there are different ways you can assign that virtually. That is the role that the state wants to play, continuing to push resources to districts so districts can make the critical decisions about what is best for their students in their communities. So we're very excited about Best for All Central. It was done by Tennessee teachers for Tennessee teachers. So I think my favorite thing is we had a student who saw her teacher and she thought she was famous. So she said, is she gonna be in People magazine? Because she saw her teacher teaching on the television and also on the computer. And so I said, yes, sure. We should have all of our teachers as celebrities. And so it's been exciting to be able to figure out how do we innovate? How do we make this year, even if it's different, it doesn't mean it has to be worse. How do we continue to say, we're not gonna hunker down, we're not going to assume that just because this year is harder and it's not gonna look like other years, that we're gonna wait and we're gonna just call it a bye. We are saying that we have 1/3 of our students in this state who are reading on grade level. 2/3 of our elementary school students are not. So if we are really going to make a difference in the achievement, in the academic lives, and in the future potential careers and opportunities for every single child in the state, we are going to accelerate and push through the challenges and make sure that we come out on the other end stronger and better and continuing to lead the nation in what is possible. And I believe that level of optimism and support for this incredible work is absolutely necessary. So then finally, to wrap up, because I know there are questions, is I just wanted to talk about some of the good things that are happening. So on one count, it's just a look inside Shelby County Schools. There is an office for early literacy. They have included more paraprofessionals, people to come in and do small group supports for folks. We have seen that they've put more things out, newsletters, web pages. A lot of effort and work is going into creating resources in the system. I think our collective responsibility is how do we continue to say, yes, keep going? How do we continue to support that work? And how do we push and push and push to say we need to take it further, we need to do more. I've been very excited by, I feel very optimistic about the work that has come over the last 3 months, the incredible planning, to be honest, fatigue that I'm seeing across our districts and certainly here in the Southwest region. But what I am seeing is that people are willing to invest time and capacity and the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to be successful. And as a state, I think you all know that Governor Lee and I feel pretty strongly that we want to keep our schools open. We want kids to have, and families to have the option, if they want to keep their students home, keep your students home, but you need to have an option so that children can be educated in person and parents can go back to work. We both feel pretty strongly about that. And what we are seeing is the investments that we have put in as a state, as a full state community, has allowed that to happen. We have the lowest closure rate in the country right now. We have 1,325 schools that have their school buildings open. At any given time, only 9 are closed. 9 out of 1,325. It's incredible work that people are doing. And that's the story that I hope that we can continue to tell. When you take the precautions and you do the hard work and you put in the time, then you can have the outcome that you want. And we've got some great examples here in the Southwest region of people showing it is possible. A couple other things that I just wanted to bring up is that we would not be able to do this genuinely. When I look across the country, we cannot do this if we were not fully funded with the BEP. And I know that sounds, it's our funding formula. That sounds like a very kind of bureaucratic technical thing, but when I look at states across this country, all of the funding's dropped. They've just dropped. In Texas, which is the state that I happily left, love Texas, but not as much as Tennessee, because there would be no Tennessee without Texas. It was the first thing someone said when I moved here. And I was like, got it. Write it down. I was like, got it, write it down, it's in the office. Got it. Sent that little note back to my old boss and said, I'm never coming back. But one of those things is that takes legislative leadership. And we have a legislature that has said we're not backing down from funding schools because we have to keep the work going. We have to keep the work going. And that is a very bold thing. It doesn't feel that way, but when the majority of other states are saying, we're gonna take those federal dollars and we're gonna take your state dollars away and just put the federal dollars there. It's not what the federal dollars were for. It was about pushing things forward. And our state legislature, with our education committee lead, said no, schools matter. And that has allowed us to keep schools open. It has allowed us to have set-asides for masks, for hand sanitizer, for additional resources. Governor Lee would not have been able to say, let's give every teacher a kit to keep their classrooms clean if we did not have a fully funded BEP. So I do want to thank our legislative leadership, because without them, there's no way that we would be in the spot that we are in to say that the vast majority, 99.4% of schools in the state stay open, because we have the leadership in Nashville that we need to have to keep schools open. So I do want to say thank you to Chairman White, because he has led that charge in the House. Chairwoman Gresham has done that in the Senate, and without them, I can tell you right now, there's no way we would be having the success story in Tennessee that we're having today. So a special thank you, Chairman. And a couple of quick things, because I would be remiss if I didn't sing the praises of my boss and governor, who I just think the world of. But $77 to $85 million in PPE and supports for our schools. $50 million for technology that purchases a computer for 1 out of every 3 children in the state. $15 million in Wi-Fi support for those families who don't have access. $11 million for reopening grants so that districts who need support to figure out how to do this now have that support, up to $125,000. $8 million in special education funding. Our children with disabilities need to ensure they continue to have services regardless of where they are sitting and learning. And $2 million for Grow Your Own. A third of our teachers are retirement eligible in the state, a third. And we know that we are going to start losing them. We have got to get in front of that problem to make sure that we have students who have teachers in their classrooms every single day who are certified and prepared to be there. So in terms of the commissioner spot, I have to say that when I look at my 49 other colleagues across the state, I thank God every night in my prayers that I'm in Tennessee, because there's no better place to prioritize students and education and making sure that we prepare all of them to be successful in their future lives. So I want to say thank you to all of you for your leadership, for the way that you are advocating for our children and making sure that Tennessee public schools are the greatest in the country. I do believe that is true. As noted, I've seen a few. And I do believe that Tennessee is continuing to lead the country in this work. It is incredible, it is urgent, it is important, and I'm very, very grateful for being able to be a small part of that. So thank you very much.
We'll just have a short question and answer period if you have any questions to ask. Commissioner Schwinn. Mary Ann.
I'm wondering if the children are being taught history as it is, or with the cancel culture type thing, they're allowed straight to music.
Yeah, history and social studies.
Right.
Yeah, so
Civics.
I was gonna say, if you don't mind, I'd like to add civics into that. I feel pretty strongly about civics education. As I think was mentioned, I was a history teacher. And I think what we're seeing across the country is shifts in how we teach our history, social studies, civics, and government. When we looked at across the country, they just did a study, and what we saw is that the vast majority, almost 90% of students in this country do not know how government works. They do not know the foundations of our government. And that is completely unacceptable. So one of the things that we have as an initiative at the department is we want to have a pre-K through 12th grade civics-based education. We know it's expensive. We know that districts have really tight budgets. We want to make sure that that is a fundamental part of how we teach our children. So that's something that will be open source and available. We're gonna have community members come in, different folks be able to come in and talk through what should be in that, but foundations of government, civics in particular, and then staying really strong on our standards, and we've had a lot of leadership around that, also at the legislature. So I feel optimistic, but I would agree that we wanna make sure that we have our standards taught out in the way that we want and feel most comfortable in, especially civics. Real strong.
Any other questions? Oh, okay. Andy?
Yeah.
And you want to?
Oh, sure.
I wasn't taking over the mic.
I was using my teacher voice.
You did have some.
I've had a long time.
You may have to.
What about the 16-19 agenda they're talking about? I mean, is that just talk, or is it actually being implemented in some of the schools?
Yeah, so the 1619 project is something that we are seeing in some schools right now, predominantly in Metro Nashville and in Shelby County schools. We've seen a little bit. I think from our perspective as the State Department of Education, we are focusing on Tennessee standards, and we are trying to say these are the approved textbooks and instructional materials. These are the standards that we have approved through the state board, and that has got to be the core curriculum. So those have been ongoing conversations, but there's nothing coming from the department that would in any way be connected with that. But it is something that's been on our radar. We've gotten a couple of recent calls and texts about.
Any others? If not, we thank you so much for being here today, and I want you to know that we are going to make a donation in your honor to Tunnels to Towers. And I wasn't familiar with the organization, but I found out that it's a group of people that are building houses for veterans who've had really catastrophic injuries. And so each house, and they're mortgage free, and so each house is built to specific standards that particular veteran needs. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
As part of our celebration for literacy, our club gives dictionaries to schools. And I'd like to first tell you a little bit about the dictionary project before I introduce them. The dictionary, and it's going to be very brief. The dictionary project was started in 1992 by a woman in Savannah, Georgia named Ann Plummer. And she decided, she was a retired teacher, and she decided she wanted to give 50 dictionaries to a school near her home in Savannah. And so she did that this year. Well, it was so well received that she started giving them to other schools and even raising money to give more and more. And by the time, in her lifetime, she gave 17,000 dictionaries to schools in Savannah area. And from that, the dictionary project started in 1995. It's a nonprofit. It is located in Charleston, South Carolina. And they just don't have one kind of dictionary. They have 60 different kinds of dictionary, and they're in 18 different languages. So you have lots of choices. And we have chosen this particular one for our school. It's called a Student's Dictionary. And it's not just a dictionary. It has all kinds of things in it. It has the Constitution, it has the Declaration of Independence, biographies of presidents, maps of the world, facts about our states, facts about planets, sign language, Braille, all kinds of things. It's just loaded. Not only it's not just a dictionary. So we're very pleased with these, and we'll make sure that the schools get these. We want the children either 3rd or 4th grade, whatever they choose, level they choose to give them to use these this year during school, and then take them home with them, so they will have this in their home as a reference. I think it's a wonderful idea. Let me first introduce Forest Hill Elementary, and we have Zach Kokoski here today. We're glad to have you here. I got on their website, and it's a great website. I even went back, and since it's a brand new school, it's the newest school in Germantown Municipal School System, and it's beautiful. I took the whole visual tour and everything of it. It's a beautiful place, and I was just telling Zach, for being a teacher, one of the things that they emphasize is they got input from all kinds of people, but especially from the teachers. And the things that the teachers were naming, I thought, yes, that's what they need. Yes, that's what they need, and that's what they provided, which is wonderful. It is on 30 acres of land. It is a nature area, and which is wonderful. It even has a lake, or do you call it a lake or a pond? There are their purpose was to integrate the inside, the outside with the inside, and I think they've done with all their windows and the different things they've done. Some of the windows go from floor to ceiling, and they can, whether it's a hot day or a sunny day or whatever, they can regulate that. Outside they have, of course, a lot of area for physical activity, but one of the things as a teacher I really liked was the fact that they have outdoor classrooms. where the teachers can actually take the children out, and use that as a classroom. I think that's just a wonderful idea. And I'm not sure how many children you have this year.
590.
Okay, you have more than you had last year, because I had 550, so, well, that's good. And they are preschool through fifth grade. They are the Proud Foxes, and I really love their mascot, Flash. And as you look through their website, he's everywhere. And whatever event or whatever they're having, Flash is around. And I thought that was great. The absolutely beautiful library that I could spend a weekend, and just drama, art, gym. Their gym is wonderful. It's state of the art, I understand. The hallways are even beautiful. I mean, they're wide and they're bright. They're wonderful. I was also, and you can tell the children, I really enjoyed your chorus that sang on Zoom, saying I won't give up. It was very good. I know they were 4th or 5th graders, but they were very cute, and it was excellent. It was really good. I really enjoyed that. So we would hope your children will enjoy our dictionaries. The next school is Brinkley Heights Academy, and I don't know where to begin. I was so glad to meet Reverend Tim Cox, who is director of the school. This is an incredible story of an Urban church that experienced a wonderful revitalization, not only for their church, but for their community. And I can't tell you the whole story, it's too long, but I've read this 3 or 4 times, and I will send it to you. It is a wonderful story about how this all came about. And it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. It's just wonderful. I'm just so impressed with it, but I'll be glad to send it on my computer. I'll be glad to send it to you, so let me know if you'd like to read it. To make it short, in 1989, as a Baptist minister, and he was in Mississippi, and he was assigned to help this church out by preaching on Sunday mornings. When he arrived, he found very few people, very enthusiastic people, but very few people, and a crumbling church. And from there, he, with the help of those parishioners and many other people, has gone from not only rebuilding the church, but also a school. They started with what they call Bible clubs in the summer, and got to know the community and the needs of the community, and got to know the children, and of course, word spreads among children easily, so they seem to grow from there. They built their first school building, was 10,000 square feet, and have grown to another building of 20,000 square feet. They started with a pre-K kindergarten class of 13 children, and they now are pre-K 4 through 12th grade, and they have 100 children. They draw from that community. The children are all on scholarship. They have everything you'd ever want to ask. It just seems like a wonderful place and a wonderful environment. But I think if I read you their mission statement and their vision statement, I think this will tell you everything about them. The mission of Brinkley Heights Urban Academy is to intervene in the lives of at-risk children and youth by providing a high-quality, individualized Christian education that promotes academic, physical, social, and emotional and spiritual growth. And the vision statement: the school's vision is to develop a strong Christian men and women who will plant themselves and their families in this community and take up the challenge to reclaim the streets of their community. I can't think of any better mission and any better vision for their community and school. I hope your children will enjoy our books too.
To give you a little history on Susie and me, we were partners in crime about 30 years ago, starting an early childhood program, maybe longer than than that anyway. I know, I was thinking about another thing, and I thought, well, if somebody added 50 years to it, you'd know my age, so. Anyway, but we've had a lot of good experiences in the past, and another teacher here also worked with us, Margaret Wilson, so. Our last, but certainly not least presenter is going to be someone who needs no introduction to this group, and that's Representative Mark White. And we're so glad to have you here today, and I know you know probably everything I'm saying, but I did see a few new things on here because I know y'all continue to improve, and I know education is such an emphasis for Mark. Mark White was elected to serve District 83 in the Tennessee House of Representatives in a special election on January the 20th, 2010. And I remember that election well. And he is currently serving his 6th term in the Tennessee General Assembly. And all of us are going to work really, really hard that Representative Mark White is going to serve his 7th term coming up in 2021, along with a new representative, and I think he's still here, is he? But John Gillespie, if he's not, those are two that we want to keep in our General Assembly. Currently, he serves as chairman of the House Education Committee. He's a member of the Physical Review Committee. He's a member of the Health Committee and the Calendar and Rules Committee. He's co-chair of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, and Mark's main focuses are education reform, having been a former teacher and principal at Harding Academy here in Memphis. He also has an emphasis and interest in economic development, having been a successful Memphis business founder and owner, employing over 100 Memphians. And you certainly served us well with tents for many years, if y'all remember. Mark's awards include SIX, and those are capital letters, and I did say SIX, Legislator of the Year Award. He's been the Tennessee Statesman of the Year. He's a member of the Class 4 Leadership Tennessee. He was 2019 Alumni of the Year at Lipscomb University Institute of Conflict Management. And in 1976, he was the Teacher of the Year at Harding Academy here in Memphis. Mark was born in Union City, but spent most of his childhood living in Naples. That was news to me. I don't remember having heard that. Wonderful place, too. Before returning to Memphis in 1966. He is a graduate of Harding Academy and the University of Memphis with a Bachelor of Science, and Mark has a master's degree from Lipscomb University College of Leadership and Public Service. Mark and his lovely wife, Kathy, that we are just so blessed to have as a member of our club. They've been married 38 years, and their daughter, Bonnie, son-in-law, Mike, and 2 grandsons, Jack and Ty, reside in San Antonio, Texas. So we thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you, Kay. I just thought I was going to make a presentation, but thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Good to be with everyone today, especially Commissioner Schwinn. We had a good meeting this morning early and talked about a lot of things. You talked about your 3 children, but she also has 132 members of the General Assembly that I think give her more challenge to present her 3 children, or the million students across the state of Tennessee. But I was asked by Kay, and we wanted to just do a little state recognition of our 2 schools this morning. One is we have a copy of the U.S. and the Tennessee state flag that we will give to you. And then for the school library, we have several copies of the Tennessee Blue Book. Everybody now knows why they're yellow, right? They're blue books. They've been out since 1925. Anybody know why they're called blue books?
No, it wasn't.
Because
I wonder why we turned into a red state when we were kind of.
well, they're called blue books because back in the 1500s, I love history. Back in the 1500s, the King of England, they kept all the documents on this large paper, and it was enclosed in a blue velvet binder. It became government documents became known as the blue books. So we started putting this out in 1925 every 2 years. But this year is yellow because we're recognizing the women's right to vote. Everybody knows we had it. 100 years ago, on August 18, 1920, Tennessee was the 36th state, or the 3/4 state, to pass the constitutional amendment which gave women the right to vote. We had a reenactment a few weeks ago on the House floor to celebrate that. It was really interesting. It was quite a debate. They actually went back and we did the record, and they had actors come in and the debate going back and forth. And it was really close, as you know. One and two votes settled it at the end of the day. But you know why it was so difficult for the people that lived 100 years ago to pass that? It was August 18th, 1920. 3 months later, there was a presidential election. By allowing women to vote, that brought 70 million new voters into the federal election. We're worried about mail-in ballots. So you give 70 million women the right to vote, so it was quite a debate. So there's a little bit of that history in here, so we have copies of that. I have more if you need more for your library, but we're going to present each of the schools. Thank y'all so much. It's so good to see you again, Dr. Cox and everything. I used to go out there a lot and do a phenomenal job, as well as our Germantown school. So thank you. So I want to make that presentation, and thank you so very much. And Commissioner Schwinn, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. That was so, it was just really good to hear everything that you had to say that's going on. And I'm so proud that we're the most open state as far as education. And as a parent, I have a senior at Houston High School, and she is going 2 days a week, and I really wish she was going 5, but she's making it. So anyway, I have one more thing that I'd like to present to Brinkley Heights. I gave one of these books, our club did, to each of the elementary schools at Germantown, and I wanted to give you a copy also. And this was written by Mary Morgan Ketchell, whose mother is Senator Marsha Blackburn. And so she wrote it with her daughter, and it's about the War of the Roses in Tennessee. And so I really like it because it makes it accessible for elementary students to start that, as you said, the civics, which is just so important. So I'd like to present that to you. And I think that's it for the program, so we'll see about them getting lunch in here. Thank you.